Hello, is anyone out there? If you're listening, you've reached the No Fixed Agenda podcast.
I'm taking this train to the promised land. Won't you give it up? You understand. We'll take one foot forward. Don't look back.
I gotta get comfy.
Oh,
Yeah,
see, now you can get comfy now. See,
there you go.
see, it's so. This is a first.
This is the first.
We are on remote.
Yeah.
Here, and I kind of like it. This
baby.
This couch is. We need one of these in the studio,
though, bro. It gets hot. It gets hot in the studio.
Yeah, this is comfortable. I kind of like this. I'm relaxed.
Yeah,
now I see why people do therapy. Oh, people don't come.
Sleep deprived.
Wait,
sleep on the couch.
people don't come for comfort. Well, they come for comfort, I guess. So we're on remote location now, and we are here with Dr. Aleksandra Drecun. Did I say that right?
No.
Close. Drecun. But
Drecun.
call me Alex. It's
Alex.
much easier.
Okay, so we're with Alex. We're on remote, and I wanted to, before we really got started here, we'd like to talk about a little bit of everything here on the show. And I thought with today's social media and the rise in influencer after influencer after influencer, the topic of body dysmorphia, what that is, I want you to explain that, because I think a lot of people hear about it, but don't really know exactly what it is. But really how you feel social media is maybe increasing the amount of, the disease of body, BDD, right?
Yes.
Okay. See?
Yeah.
Is it a disease, or would you
It's a psychiatric condition. So it's a mental condition, and it affects about 1 in 50 million Americans.
Oh, wow.
And the condition entails where a person ends up being preoccupied by what they perceive as a physical flaw in their appearance. And they obsess about it, and it creates a ton of distress for them. And it also impairs either their occupational, social, or academic functioning. So they spend a lot of time checking how they look, covering up what they think is a flaw. Now, this flaw could be a minor flaw, or it could be completely imagined. It may not even be there. Oh. And sometimes it gets so severe that people actually think they look disfigured and like a monster.
Like some form of dismemberment, like I'm missing a limb or a scar or something like that.
They think they look alien.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow. So is this a form of like OCD in some sense? I don't know. People like super obsessive over this thing. I have a mild case of OCD where I see things, or I put things where I need to put them. And if somebody touches them, I lose my mind. That's something similar to this, where it's like the focus is so much on the body than it is on anything else, like material objects.
So great question. It has a similarity to OCD in the sense that there's obsessions about how they look, and they're worried about that. And they do engage in compulsions like a person with OCD, but it's not about, OCD is more about, the fear of this bad thing happening to someone or someone they love. Right. So they have like contamination fears, like fear of getting sick, or, if I don't turn the light switch on and off, something bad's going to happen. But BDD is more about this worry about how they look and other people staring at them. And they're just so consumed by it. It can take hours in a day away from somebody because they're checking, they're concealing, they're seeking reassurance.
Yeah.
They tend to look at their phones, they take pictures of themselves, they look at mirrors. So it's just very, very disruptive to people.
You said 50 million people are affected by this in the United States alone.
Alone. And we think it's an underestimate because most people don't talk about their how their symptoms.
Yeah.
They might put it under the umbrella of, oh, well, I'm just, having body image issues, or, everybody has insecurities about their bodies. Every single person, there isn't a person on this planet who thinks they're perfect.
Right.
And as
I'm perfect.
Oh, I am too.
Okay, besides you two.
I mean,
actually, I didn't used to think that.
Okay, maybe we need to do a podcast with you guys telling us what you're doing that you feel so good and you have this great self-esteem.
maybe
That'll be the follow-up.
That's the follow-up conversation.
Yeah. That's a follow-up episode, part 2.
Yeah. So, like you said, it's kind of under stated as far as the 50 million. Is it? And I'm going to assume it's probably more female than male.
Yes, typically. Okay. So it is underreported. However, we are seeing rise with men too and males because of social media. Yeah. So if you think about back in the day prior to social media, that is definitely our generation, right? We remember those good old days. So before, if you kind of thought about how society decided what the ideals were, it was very gate kept, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the, Victoria's Secret runway models or, these people who were in fashion, right? But now that social media has come to be, there is no gatekeeping anymore because anybody can get on social media and now influence what they think the ideal should be.
Yeah.
So that's a very different thing that's happening that we didn't have before.
I think about this a lot, the beauty's in the eye of the beholder type thing, right?
Yes.
Perception. And a lot of what I do in fitness is that it's like understanding that people that come to me say, I want to lose 20 pounds or 100 pounds or whatever it is, their fitness goal is. They come to me and they have this perception of what fit looks like. So the perception aspect of things is kind of what I think about when we talk about body dysmorphia in, the early 1900s, 1930s, 40s, 50s, where we didn't have those things. And the body types, if you look at them from throughout the centuries, have changed.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like back in the 80s, you had the Jane Fondas that were like super skinny and anorexic.
Yes.
And then you got the Victoria's Secret models. And then that was the ideal. How much of what people that struggle with body dysmorphia, when you address them, is it the perception that you're addressing, or is it just the thought of them going through this thing?
Both, because it is a perception piece, because a lot of people with BDD end up going and getting cosmetic surgery work. And 80% of those people who end up getting it aren't satisfied because it's how they perceive. And with BDD, what we notice that's different from most people who don't have BDD, but will have some, areas of their body that they feel self-conscious about, or even their faces, right? It doesn't matter, is that for those of us who don't have it, we're pretty stable in the way that we perceive ourselves. It doesn't fluctuate that much. But with BDD, it fluctuates tremendously. They can look at a picture of themselves, the same picture, and they can think, oh my God, I look awful. And they can look at it again and think, oh, I don't look so bad. And so when you have any kind of corrective cosmetic work done, it doesn't fix the problem because it's their perception that is off.
Yeah. Well, and I guess I never even thought about the cosmetic side of things, but you look at whether it's men or women, and especially people in Hollywood, are constantly, getting facelifts, getting some kind of cosmetic surgery done. And I guess I didn't really factor in the fact that you see somebody who has had breast to face to, butt implants to calf implants to whatever it is.
Injection.
Is potentially high risk for having some kind of BDD, I would assume. And the fact that, my calves don't look good. My butt doesn't look good. And it's continuously, changing how people are wanting to perceive themselves. But as you said, it's all mental in that sense of, it doesn't really change how they're going to look at it because they get something done. Like, oh, well, they didn't, maybe I could have gone one size bigger.
How about we're talking about it from a cosmetic perspective, right? And we've all seen extreme cases where people are like removing rib cages and ribs and making their waist super narrow to like almost the size of my calf, right?
Yes.
And it's like, holy smokes, those are extreme cases. At what point from a therapeutic perspective do you think that it really is an issue like that needs to be addressed? If you have somebody in our audience right now that might be struggling with a mild case of body dysmorphia, right? And they're going through, like, at what point from a therapeutic perspective, do you think it needs to be maybe dealt with or addressed, or that they need to seek help?
Well, I think if there's any kind of level of impairment, an area of their life, whether it affects like their ability to go out with their friends and do things, whether it affects their ability to get to work on time or how they function at work. And then if it creates any kind of distress, just like any other mental health condition, everything's on a continuum. You have a mild, moderate, and severe. The more severe cases, harder to treat, right? But at any point where they feel preoccupied, where they feel consumed by their thoughts, where they feel very distressed by how they're experiencing this condition, it's a good idea to seek help because it is treatable. You know, when we talk about, you know, even the cosmetic surgery perspective, it's concerning now because a person will go and redo a procedure over and over and over. I mean, think about Michael Jackson. His nose almost fell off, poor guy.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right?
That's such
it just
a great
kept getting
example.
smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm just thinking about the health implications of that, let alone like what it looks like physically. And so now what surgeons are seeing is this concept called, I don't know if you've come across it, is called Snapchat dysmorphia. So all these filters that people are using to what they consider to enhance their features. This is what they're going to surgeons for, is make me look like this filter, change my eyes, change my cheekbones, change, you know, my nose, my lips, all these things. And so cosmetic surgeons have an ethical responsibility to think about BDD and rule this out because it is not going to be effective.
To your knowledge, do they even consider those things do you know if cosmetic surgeons think about those kind of things, or are they just like, there's another paycheck, bring them in?
I think it depends on the person. I think it's because there's more awareness around it, especially now that we're seeing this concept of a Snapchat dysmorphia. But, you know, of course, there's going to be people out there who aren't aware, right? Because they're doing medicine. They're not really thinking about the psychology of things. And of course, I mean, even kind of going back to what Jeff was mentioning about differences in gender, right? Is that the guys, men, they're going to focus on different things, right? We're seeing more of that bigorexia, right? Yeah. Where the guys don't think they're big enough. Their arms are big enough. Their legs are big enough, you know, all these things. So they'll be seeking out procedures based on what gender norms or ideals are, and women will be doing the same. So they won't be focused necessarily on the same areas.
Yeah. Wow. And so if you have somebody that has a mild case, right? It's all on the spectrum is what you said, right? If you have somebody on a mild case, have you experienced somebody that starts off mild and gets worse, or is it usually like middle of the case, or if they have a mild case, it can kind of stay that way the entire time, where it's not too impairing of their day-to-day lives and they can still go on, they just struggle with it, it's just like a mild psychological thing? Or is this something that when they get it, it's like progressively worse?
It can get progressively worse if they don't seek help. And especially if they are going online to, you know, social media platforms, what we find is the research shows that if a person is satisfied with their appearance, right? And they go on social media and they look at these images, they may not be as impacted by them. But if a person has more insecurity and goes and looks at these images of people who look perfect and they're curated and they have their filters on, or that's their job, they are an influencer. And so they're working out hours a day, they're watching what they eat, this is how they make their money. This is not going to be the norm for most of us. This is not our job. It's not our career. And so these people will be more impacted because they're going to see the discrepancy between how they look and how these influencers look, which is going to make them feel bad about themselves. Yeah.
You know what I really like? I mean, there's a lot of negative with social media. There's also a lot of positive. And I think what in the way the youth is being brought up now, a little bit more open-minded, right? Like, we talk about, the fitness influencer or whatever. I think that one of the biggest things that was a help to some of this was when the dad bod became popular. I'm serious. It became one of those things. Like, men didn't always have to have that six pack to feel like they were fit. Same thing for females. Now that a lot of brands have gone towards the plus size model. And this also is like from a mannequin, you go into the shopping malls,
Target now,
and now you can see they've actually got, mannequins that have bellies on them. And it's from the positive side of things, at least there's some recognition now you know, we talk about the 80s when it's Jane Fonda and everything. It was that slim, in shape, no other option for it. Now, at least we have some of this going on where now is that changing the fact that 50 million people have ED? No, but at least is some of that stuff there that's helping.
I mean, if you think about it from a 50% or 50 million, right? But I deal with the other. I used to be over 400 pounds. Okay. So we're talking about it from a cosmetic perspective, but what I see in my profession is both spectrums of it, where I'm super skinny and I want to be bigger, or I'm morbidly obese. I'm not happy. I need to lose weight, or I have 20, 30 pounds and I just don't like the way I look. When those clients walk into the door, I'm like, okay, so what's your goal? I have somebody now who's really skinny and he's like, I just want to be bigger. And so he's standing on the scale. He goes, can I get on the scale today? No, don't get on the scale today. Right. And so why? How do you feel? And it's taking it back to the feeling of aspect. There's a term that I like to use with a lot of these clients is be the guard, or the guard to the gateway of your brain. Like, watch what you're consuming. Let me see. I don't have social media. I don't have this. I don't have that. Or if I do, unfollow this person, unfollow that person. If you have somebody that has a mild case, what would be like the number one tip that you would give them to say? I mean, obviously the extreme cases is going to be really hard, right? Because that can get really dangerous and scary in a lot of places. But on a mild case spectrum, what would you be like the number, like 2 or 3 steps that you would recommend somebody to go, this might be something that I need to seek help with, or these are the things that I need to maybe change in my behavior?
You know, mild, moderate, or severe. I think the key is to really understand what BDD is, because a lot of people don't even recognize they have it. They don't even know it is a mental health condition. And so they just think, I look really terrible, because that is what they see in the mirror, right? I mean, how do you know otherwise, right? It's kind of like when you're, working with somebody who has anorexia and they see a 150-pound person when they're 80 pounds. They're emaciated. Yeah. So it's kind of learning about the diagnosis, how it's showing up for the person, and just understanding that this is a misperception that's happening and that can be corrected through therapy. It's interesting you say that. So what is the connection that you see between eating disorder and BDD? Like, does each of them go hand in hand, right? Do you see that? And does that factor into more the female versus male, or is it both? How does that play into it? Yeah, great question. So they're similar, but they're different diagnoses. Okay. BDD doesn't focus so much on weight or size. Okay. The way that eating disorders do. And so we don't see these purging behaviors or these binging behaviors, right? Or these restricted eating behaviors so much. That's more of an eating disorder. Now, they both can co-occur, right? But BDD is more focused on it could be anything. It could be your skin. It could be your eyes. Okay. It could be anything. Your cheekbones, your nose, your lips.
And so when it correlates like that, you treat them separately?
You treat everything together. But typically, if it's an eating disorder, particularly if it's anorexia, that has the highest mortality rate than any other psychiatric diagnosis. So that one always trumps everything else, especially if we're seeing that they are losing weight, because that can spiral out of control really quickly. It's really scary.
On the other aspect, on the opposite spectrum of it, where like they're 4, 5, 600 pounds into it. Now they're super. I mean, have you seen or have read of scenarios like that? Because that's kind of what interests me a lot. Because I'm ADHD, I struggle with understanding what my limit is, or I'm looking for a hug, right?
Mm-hmm. You want a hug right now?
Oh, I love this.
Wait, we got tissue.
Tissue away, bro. See how he treats me, you guys.
He's showing you love.
Yeah. All love. On that side of the spectrum, that could be considered an eating disorder?
Yeah, it could be an eating disorder, right? I mean, you could still just have a lot of binge eating. You know, people do that too. And that's also disordered eating as well, right? Right. And so, that's a whole nother category. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any research as far as youth versus adults in BDD and how many youth are being targeted with body dysmorphia or no?
Not yet so far, but we do know that any kind of body image issues start to show up in childhood.
Yeah.
So start to notice it.
Interesting.
I would assume with kids are ruthless, like bullies. I honestly like going into school and saying, "Oh, you're fat," like whatever. I mean, but that's the nature of youth at this point, going through school. Even back in the 40s and 50s, it was like,
right.
So I'm just kind of curious if that was something that did show up as.
Well, the thing with youth that we know is that if you're thinking about social media platforms, as you were talking about before, it's not an all bad thing, right? It's a tool just like anything else. It all depends on how you use it. If you're deliberate and intentional about it, it can be a good thing, right? If you're not, then it can take over your life and create harm. But with kids, the problem is when because their brains aren't fully developed, they don't really know how to process the information that they are receiving. So they can't differentiate the same way as an adult. Adults struggle with it, right? We're talking about BDD and adults who are impacted by social media. So then imagine how a kid is going to make sense of social media platforms.
Oh, yeah.
What's that window when you say child, right? The female brain, the male brain, I can't remember the name of the author, talks about the adolescent stages being all the way up to 24.
Yes, if you're neurotypical. So the brain doesn't fully develop. That last part, which is the prefrontal cortex, the very front of the brain, which is like all executive functioning, decision-making, judgment, attention, planning, organizing, sequencing, all those things, doesn't fully develop until a person's 25. If they are neurodiverse, meaning they have ADHD or they're on the spectrum, it's 30.
Wow.
I didn't know
that explains a lot, dude. That explains a lot. Yeah. This is why I didn't get anything done until I was after 30, bro.
Yeah. Makes sense. Right? Right? Yeah. Makes sense.
That's interesting, dude.
Wow.
That's wild.
What, I guess we kind of skipped over, what got you into doing this kind of therapy? And how long have you been doing this?
Oh gosh, I have to think how old I am. So I've been doing it for.
I'm not asking you for any age.
She's about to tell us how old she is without telling us how old she is.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with age. I'm all about it. So 24 years, what got me into it was, I remember when I was in high school, I took my first psychology class and I fell in love with it. And I just knew, I was like, this is what I want to do. I came home, I told my parents, I want to be a psychologist in 9th grade. And my parents were like, what? That's so weird, because culturally, my parents are from Eastern Europe.
Oh, wow.
They're immigrants. And they were like, no, girl, you need to be a medical doctor.
Yeah,
or
a lawyer.
attorney.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to be a real doctor. Not just a quack doctor. What are you talking about? Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
But I never wavered.
Yeah.
So, and I've been loving it since.
Yeah. And what is your specialty other than bullying? Because I went through your webpage. You have a myriad of things that you address, right?
Yes.
From a psychological perspective.
Yes.
We had somebody on talking about a narcissist. That was kind of her specialty. What would you say yours would be if somebody was?
So any kind of anxiety disorders, including OCD, generalized anxiety, depression disorders, trauma, BDD, BFRBs, I don't know. Most people don't know what those are.
That
Body
sounds like
focused repetitive behaviors.
I won't tell you what that sounds like. Was it resting
bitch face?
Yeah, that one. That's what it sounded like, bro.
That's so funny.
That could be a disorder.
It could be a disorder too. Yeah, like what's wrong with your face? Nothing. RBF, bro. No, but what was it again? I'm sorry.
So it includes things like hair pulling, skin picking, things like that. Those are BFRBs. And then relationships, things like that. Hypnotherapy. Yeah. So, ADHD. That's a specialty of mine.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna make an appointment with you, Mickey.
You got the couch. We already know the couch is comfortable.
Yeah, we got about 20 more minutes. We're good.
We can start now.
Yeah.
I'll just walk out.
No, you gotta stay, bro. You're my support group. You're supposed to be holding my hand and giving me tissue, bro.
Are we officially in couples therapy?
Yes, this is 100%. Don't tell our wives. Our wives are already jealous.
I love it. I could see the bromance.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Love it.
They're like, he talks to you more than he talks to me. And I'm like, well.
I want to go back to the BDD thing. And I watched one of your videos a while ago, and you were talking about how people with BDD become kind of recluse and seclusive.
Yes.
Like, talk to me about that a little bit, because I would assume if you're an introvert, you're an introvert, and it's going to happen. But if you're very extroverted, like either of us, then you can become into like the recluse and secluded mentality because of.
I know. So that's where it gets really severe. So these are usually the people who have BDD so badly that they think that they look like an alien, like a monster. And so they don't want to be seen by anyone. They don't want to leave their house because they're so horrified by the way that they look. There's a ton of shame surrounding how they look. And so they won't they even come to the point where they'll say, well, why would I ever expose anybody to my ugliness? It's that bad.
Wow.
And they think they look so ugly that they assume that people are staring at them, even though they're not. I mean, it almost kind of starts to border a little bit of paranoia. Really
that's
scary.
So that would be like the high end spectrum of everything.
Yeah.
And what's the process of walking that back? How do you even get somebody out of that stage? That scares the shit.
You got to even get them to get out the door, bro,
well,
just to get into an office, right?
Well, you could do telehealth, and that could be a starting point, right? So they don't even have to leave. But, being on a camera is going to be really hard for them, right?
I struggled with that big time.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I didn't even want to do a podcast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was one of the things that we had talked about. I kind of gave you the short history of that. And he was so worried about getting on the mic and everything else because of some of his learning disabilities or just who he is.
Yeah.
Sorry, big guy.
Right. Don't be sorry.
You're doing great.
And so the running joke is please don't listen to the first 10 episodes.
Yeah. I was learning how to shut up. I was learning how to shut up. That was the thing, right? But that's to the point where, because we wanted to talk about body dysmorphia for several reasons. One, from a weight loss perspective for us, my audience and the people in my community or my gym community do struggle with a lot of that, right? When they still, even after they have had success and they're healthy, they're moving, 3 to 5 times a week, and they're eating somewhat of a balanced diet and they're feeling fantastic. They've lost 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 pounds, and they still see themselves as this person that they once were that are no longer, right? And so from my own experience, I speak to it and I say, well, yes, it takes a while. And this is my non-educated brain, just in my own personal experience it takes a while for my brain to catch up to see what I'm seeing in my body. And so I tell my clients that I was over 400 pounds. And after I lost 160 pounds, I went back and I was like, I would walk by a mirror and I purposely wouldn't look. Right. And then I would look again and I would sometimes still see the big guy. Right. And then I'd look back and I'm like, oh, that's not the big guy anymore.
Yeah, but we get this frozen image in our mind, right?
Wow.
That sticks, right? And so that's why perception is so key. And I think, as a whole, what we're trying to move towards is more of a positive body image in the sense of, as you said, we're such a visual society, right? We fixate on what we think things should look. And then what we do is, to the detriment of ourselves, we don't check in with actually how we feel in our bodies, that embodiment, right? Because regardless of what our size or shape is, if we're strong, if we have stamina, if we have endurance, if we can do the things that we actually love and enjoy with our bodies, we have a really good body. Regardless of how it looks, we have a really good body, right?
So to this point here is, you see a lot of like yo-yo BDD. Is that, because like he said, 400 pounds, you lose 150. You've got this body dysmorphia about what you're perceiving, but then all of a sudden, like, well, I'll gain it back to, Do you ever see
yo-yoing? No, but what it will do is it will move, for example. So let's just say somebody doesn't like their nose and they go get cosmetic work done. Okay. Their nose is they're not fully satisfied, right? That's the problem with BDD. A person who doesn't have BDD and gets their nose done, they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, right?
Yeah.
Check. But with BDD, they'll still be dissatisfied and then they'll move on to a next body part and a next one. And it just keeps growing and growing. And that's how it gets worse over time.
So the goalpost always moves.
Exactly.
It never goes back to, hey, I need to, if we're talking about weight loss or whatever, you don't really see that as a,
no.
But the goalposts move from, okay, this is fixed, quote unquote. I need to go on to something else.
Yeah, they're never satisfied.
But what I will say in my own experience in watching the goalposts move, when you say that, that really does, when you say that, it really does resonate with me, only because I've seen people where I'm very clear on setting intention of what the goal is and a realistic one.
Yes, a realistic one's really important.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And so it's like, I have somebody who probably has maybe 30% body fat and needs about 20 to 30 pounds, let's say. And they're like, well, I want to lose 50 pounds. And immediately it's like, why? And it's like, well, because that's what I was when I was 18 years old. And now they're 30 something.
Well, you're not going to be
Yeah.
that anymore.
Yeah.
It's actually not healthy for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
understanding and setting that expectation up front. But then I've also had the extreme cases where they are extremely morbidly obese to the high end. And it's at that point, it's addressing just the immediate issue, to your point when you talked about like, hey, well, if somebody is having a major eating disorder to where they're 80 pounds and they're now emaciated, the number one issue is just getting some weight on them.
Yes, because their organs fall apart. Their organs stop working. It's scary.
Same applies when they're morbidly obese and they can barely even walk.
Right.
And it's like, I just need to get some weight off of you. Let's not worry about the goal. Let's worry about the next pound.
Just stabilizing you, right? Yeah.
And then once that happens, they come in, they start dropping weight, they start feeling better. Then we set expectations and goals, right? When it gets down to where they're actually in a very healthy body composition, but they're in a very unhealthy mindset of, I need to keep doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that's an obsession.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the problem with that is that it's being run by the mind in an unhealthy way. And it's not taking into account the changes that have been made. So it goes unacknowledged, which is why it continues to become more severe, right? Because as you said, the goal has to be realistic. Most people, they have different body types. I can work out all I want. I will never be a full-on mesomorph. I will never have this like buff body, no matter what I do. I could work out all I want. It's not within my DNA. It's not going to be that.
Yeah.
But I think what's happening with the social, kind of bring it back to the social media platforms is that we're seeing these ideals or what we think is ideal. We're being projected and it's like, oh, I want this body. and we're human. We always want what we don't have.
Yep.
And so we just have to be so cautious. And I think also just as a society, not prioritizing what we look like so much. That's not that important. What's important more is like what's inside, and that we're healthy, however that looks for people.
Yeah. And that's the difference in what I do for services. That like they come in with this concept of that, but the focus is always on how you feel.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest takeaway when we talk about BDD is that it's like, if you guys are out there listening to this stuff, whether you have 100 pounds to lose, whether you have 5 pounds to lose, or you feel like you need to gain weight, it's like the internal check is the priority. The internal check is always the priority.
We don't sacrifice our health for a look.
And it's hard to do.
Yeah. It is hard to do.
Alex, I want to be very respectful of your time. And I know you've got another meeting coming up here. So I want to call it good here. Okay. But I do want you to give a shout out. Like if somebody's having questions about BDD or wants to come speak to somebody, speak to you, whoever, where can they find you? Whether it's social media, whether it's your website, where would you?
No social media for me, guys.
See, there you go.
She is a good gatekeeper to her mind.
Yeah.
This is the lady you need to come and talk to, okay? Yes.
You can definitely find me on my website at www.a as in apple, the number 4, C's and Cat, T's and Tom. You can call me at 858-792-3541, or you can email me through my website.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time and allowing us to come in and get some couples therapy on this.
I love this grown man. You guys are too cute.
We're going to be good now.
Yeah.
I think
we're good for at least another month or so.
Another month.
We're good.
We'll see you in a couple months.
Sounds great. Oh, thanks, guys. It was such a joy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
This has been an international podcast transmission of No Fixed Agenda presented by Bubs Naturals. Music was provided by the Poor Dirty Astronauts with lyrics written by Matt Meyer. You can rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you find your favorite podcast episodes. NFA, over and out.